Hello and welcome back once again to the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast. This is episode 46. John and Wendy talk to Baskaran Ambalavanan. I'm your host, John.
And I'm Wendy. How's it going, John?
We're doing well. Wendy, how have you been?
I have been well, but John, I want to hear about your experience this past weekend.
I had a really amazing experience taking part in the DC Podfest.
Wow.
It was interesting from the standpoint, this was my first podcast festival. Yeah. I had no idea what to expect. There were about 200 people, and it was like I told Jen Crawford, who runs it and who was kind enough to invite me to speak. It's a lot like a comic book show. It's not the same crowd, but you have podcasters of all levels, of all interests, people with tens of downloads and tens of thousands, if not millions of downloads and everything in between. I got to speak on Twitter chats, and our story, Wendy, really turned a lot of heads when I said we're the first. We may not be the first.
Yeah.
We are certainly the only podcast that we are aware of that started as a Twitter chat.
Yes.
Really well received. I had some great feedback, got a lot of people that wanted to talk to me afterwards.
Nice.
I got to meet a couple of folks that, I don't know if you know him, Wendy, but Ross Brand, who I met years ago through T-Chat way back in the day, T-Chat forever, hashtag. But I met him through T-Chat, and I met Brian Fanzo, also who used to do T-Chat a lot and OMC Chat. But Ross and I ended up recording an episode of one of his shows while I was there, and that was really amazing because they had a studio set up. We literally sat down with mics and headsets and just bam, off to the races.
That is awesome.
It was really, really cool. Took my friend Rob, who's starting a show soon, and he got super energized. I got really excited about some of the things I think that we could be doing to improve and certainly up our game. Again, it was just a fantastic experience all around. I'm looking forward to next year already. One of the best parts, obviously got to meet people and do my thing. There was a raffle, and I won a very, very high-end microphone. So now I'm going to figure out how to hook that up through. I got to get my son's going to help me figure it out because I have to have a preamp and everything. I had multiple people come up to me after it was over, like, that's one of the best mics on the market. I'll give them a shout out. It's a Hila Sound PR40.
Nice.
A lot of podcasters use them. I am excited to get it hooked up. Unfortunately, I'm not using it for this show, but soon enough. Well,
awesome.
Listen. Talked a lot about Podfest, and again, It was an amazing experience. I would certainly recommend to other podcasters that listen to us, find your local conference and check one out if you get a chance. Find meetup groups. I found out there's actually a meetup group for podcasters close to me, so I'm going to check out a couple of their sessions over the next few months. And
nice.
Anyway, can't recommend it enough. But enough about me and the Podfest. I'm going to let you make the introduction, and we will get started.
That's
fantastic.
Awesome, John.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So very excited to welcome Baskaran to the podcast tonight. He is an HR workforce technology consultant with 20 years of experience in India, Oman, and the United States with substantial HR functional and technical expertise. He is passionate about HR tech tools like AI, gamification, chatbots, blockchain, AR, VR. He currently is the principal consultant for Hila Solutions, LLC, an HR technology consulting firm that offers soup-to-nuts solutions for HR technology space, such as needs assessment, system selection, implementation, etc., etc. He has an MBA from Alliance Manchester Business School, the University of Manchester, UK, Master of Arts in Public Administration. He is certified GPHR, SHRM SCP, SPHR, and PHRCA. Welcome so much to the show tonight. And our first question is, what's in your glass?
Hey, thank you for Wendy and John for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. So what's in my glass? My glass, I have a green tea to keep me awake. And I'm told that if you drink green tea, you can get smarter. I'm not smart. I'm trying to get smarter.
Well, that's why we're having you on the show, Baskaran, because you make me sound smarter just being here the green tea.
I love it.
Baskaran, I know we initially connected through chats and what have you. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I don't really know a lot about your background other than kind of what you've done. But how exactly did you get started in a career in HR?
Sure. I started my career in sales after successfully in the sales for a few years. And I had a friend and he was in HR and he was talking about a lot of opportunities to solve complex problems and how he is handling those things. And so that inspired me get into HR because at people to people, John, I'm able to connect well. And so I thought this is the right field for me. So I made that career transition to HR. And then from then, there's no look back. Then I got a chance, opportunity to work in the Middle East, Oman. It's called Sultanate of Oman. Then I moved to US
Wow.
16 years ago.
Wow. That's quite the trek.
Yeah, I'm blessed in so many ways, Wendy.
Yeah,
The
that's
kind of
awesome.
opportunity, the countries I was able to work, the size of companies, and the kind of people, all those things. I'm truly blessed.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what are some of the biggest differences that you've found between working in India, in Oman, and then coming to the US?
Well, I think the India's, the main difference I would always say is the cultural nuances or the cultural sensitivities. If you work in India versus Oman, India is a democratic country, but Oman is a monarchy. The US is a capitalist country. Again, it's a democratic country. So how you work and how you interact, how you communicate, all these things are the different things in my view. Primarily the cultural nuances, understanding how you greet somebody in Oman, because in the Arab countries, culture and pride is very important for them, and so that is one thing. And then look at the things. Indians like stability versus mobility in the U.S. The third thing I would say is the controlling versus living with harmony. Americans tend to control things in terms of having a greater control and making sure that it works. People in India and in the Middle East, and they live with the harmony. And also the family versus the individualism versus collectivism. That is also there. That's another difference. There are a lot of differences you can keep on go. We can keep on adding it, but these are the things that comes to my mind right away.
Baskaran, in your current role, you work with a lot of different companies and you consult on a lot of different topics for them. Do you see common challenges among your clients, and what do you think the biggest challenge that those folks are going to see over the next year or two?
I think given the lowest unemployment rate and the shifting economic trends like gig economy, I think that attracting the right talent or top talent is a critical need, in my view. So I think the next year is, if you look at what the challenge of the next year is, the changing technology, right? The AI, the automation, the chatbots, the combination of factors, John. It's not just one. The improving economy, the talent shortage, the gig economy, and the implosion of tools. All these things offers collective challenges cumulatively.
And are most of your clients in a similar space industry wise, or do you tend to work with a lot of different organizations?
No, I work with the different, I'm industry agnostic. Like HR, I'm not tuned to specific industries. In the beginning, I said I'm blessed to work in different industries, not one particular industry. I've worked in healthcare, I worked in entertainment, I worked in different sectors. And so I'm not focusing on any specific industries. I work with cross industries.
Do you have a favorite one to work with?
I don't have any favorite one, but the business services I prefer. I like most because that's where most of my experiences comes from.
I was hoping you were going to say entertainment.
Yeah, I like it. I worked briefly. I worked in healthcare also, but I think the business services is pretty cool.
Let's talk a little bit about blockchain and what excites you about that. But I think you're also going to have to define it for our listeners and talk a little bit about how you can get customers on board with the changes. Lots of questions there.
Yeah, it is. So the blockchain, I think any technology is definitely exciting. There are a lot of technology tools that are pretty exciting in the HR space. Artificial intelligence, the chatbots, or gamification. But the blockchain is special because blockchain is a distributed ledger. and then it is different to a centralized ledger. So what I mean by it is it's a distributed ledger, and it has some characteristics that are immutable, which means it cannot be altered. You can add a new record, but you cannot alter it. So to put it simple terms, the blockchain is a peer-to-peer network of ledgers that encrypts and stores blocks of data and with a digital history, and it can be viewed and verified by all the users. So every time a new data is added, it extends the ledger's chain of blocks. So that's what it makes it special. For example, to put a simple example, let's take you have an account in Bank of America, a checking account. Every time you make the transaction, you're taking money or transferring money, they're adding it. The database, the ledger is maintained by the bank, right? What happens is if somebody is hacking that database, the bank can always retrieve, do a backup and do it. But in a decentralized ledger, all of them have the database. It is like distributing the database to all of them. So you can see all the things happening in the ledger, right? I mean, the biggest thing is you cannot manipulate it. You cannot change it. You can modify it. You can add a new record to it. You cannot modify the old ones. Even the new ones, you need to have a special cryptographic code. Only then you'll be able to do it. So that gives security, that gives more visibility. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm trying to take it all in.
Yeah, it is a new technology in the HR space because,
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at this is not new since 2000, the last 10 years, I would say. I think it came in 2008. It's very prevalent in other areas, but in HR space, it's gaining a lot of traction now, particularly in the international payroll and in recruiting. There are areas of where you can apply blockchain within the HR space. I think maybe it's 3 or 4 space that comes to my mind is recruiting, the credential verification, international payroll, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I can see how it would be very helpful with international payrolls and probably even across the different states payrolls, because that can sometimes be tricky with all the different laws. And then once you get to international, you've got different types of currency. So
yeah, especially the international payroll, because if you're hiring somebody there, but if you don't have a payroll to run, I mean, they can. There's a company called Bitwage. They have a solution to this, and so they facilitate the cross-border payment. I mean, in real time. So they pay it in the local currency, and then they manage the payment with the bitcoins. So this is more helpful if you're operating internationally, but you don't have a payroll system there or payroll team or payroll vendor, because that's pretty expensive. This is least expensive as well. So
cool.
So having said all that, Baskaran, how do you get people on board with these? Because you're talking about major change for a lot of folks. It sounds just as we listen to you. How do you get folks on board with that, knowing it is a change in process and job and everything?
Yeah, change is always difficult, John. We all know that, right? I mean, so I think the focus is more on selling the benefits rather than selling the features. I think that comes handy. First of all, selling the benefits of how it benefits them and how better the system can make it improve efficiency and productivity. For example, the international payroll, I mean, I work for companies where they have smaller operation. They may not have large population enough to have a payroll, but they have 10, 15 employees. So around the world in each of those countries. And so having this will helps them to pay them on time and recruit the right talent. And so it simplifies the time, and then it saves the cost. And so there are significant tangible benefits. You can see it and tell them. So I think that's one way of doing it. Second, I think again, this all depends on the leadership buy-in, making sure that they understand this, because it's cost intensive. At the same time, although there are benefits, it's also cost intensive. So you need leadership buy-in as well.
Sure. Just like any change, anything you want to implement like that. Any
technology adoption, right? I mean, if you look at 20 years ago, the HR system were not very popular. I mean, very big companies were operating 25, 30 years ago. I would say now, even small companies now, they focus on having a system of record, whether it is HR, payroll, and those things. And so it takes time, I mean, to embrace and adapt and assimilate in the systems.
Definitely. Well, Baskaran, it is now time for everyone's favorite part of our show, the half-hour question connection.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, do you remember how you first connected with us?
Sure. I follow Steve Brown. I think a lot of people follow Steve Brown. Steve Brown is a rock star of HR. So in one of the tweet, he mentioned about join HR social hour today, and then that's when I jumped on it, and then I think I put it. I mean, I think tweeted to you, and you responded back, Wendy, saying that we are meeting at this time, and they gave the link. I think it's about a year ago, roughly, and actually, this conversation happened on Sunday. I think 11 months or 1 year ago. That's how I got.
Wow.
Yeah. Then I participated in a couple of chats. That's how then John came and we connected, and John thanked after the chat. That was something different. I didn't see in any chats. So that was very different. Even on LinkedIn, then we got connected on LinkedIn and we went from there.
I'm glad that you acknowledged that, Bhaskar. I remember that because we certainly pride ourselves on, I guess, taking another step as far as making it a little more personal with our chat. And, and I think that's one of the things we really are proud of is that we make it a friendly thing, more, not just a learning, but really engaged. So
absolutely.
I'm glad you remember that.
Yeah, it makes a difference, John. I think one of the few things, that's why you're in the top 50. I mean, it makes a difference, right? You're making it more personal. People remember it. And I remember that. That was very unique. And I started following in other chats as well, just so you know. I stole your idea.
Right. Hey, no stealing. It's not a problem. But let's talk a little bit about networking and how's that helped you in your career and what's been really effective for you when it comes to networking?
Well, network, I mean, the power of network is unbelievable, John. I mean, throughout my career, I mean, as I mentioned to you earlier, I am able to connect one-on-one, one-to-one, and I'm not good at networking earlier, but I understood the power and value of network when I was laid off in 2008 or 9. Since then, I've been, very active on network, online and offline. I think it is pretty significant. I mean, networking is not only about giving leads or referrals or job connections. There are a lot of things you can do with networking, learning new things, for example. There are a lot of things. For example, in the networking online, when you come to Twitter chat, I mean, we do a lot of chats. I mean, so you get connected to people and we share information, share knowledge. When you share, you also learn something new when you're participating in the chats. So networking is pretty powerful in my view, because it's not only who you know, what you know, but it's also how you leverage it.
Oh, exactly. In addition to Steve Brown, who else do you follow for HR Insights?
I follow a lot of people, Wendy. Jason Averbook, Josh Burson. Then you have Jennifer McClure, Megan Vito. A ton of people in HR. I mean, they have the gift of giving, and there's so much to learn and share from. And I follow many more people like you guys. I mean, Wendy and you and John. And I follow closely the Next Chat and the Work Trends, the chats, chat-wise. Josh Burson is certainly is my favorite, and Jason Averbook, because I'm more on the technology space. So I follow them, what they do. And the Steve Brown, obviously, is a rock star.
How do you enjoy giving back to the HR community, Baskaran?
Well, to me, John, I mean, it's always about it's always about giving back. I mean, I'm so blessed in so many different ways, and so HR has whatever I've accomplished a lot in today. It's because of the profession. I do in different ways, John. One is volunteering in professional associations. For example, in PIRA, I've been volunteering for 10 years. And then I also volunteer at Cal State Long Beach University in the HR Advisory Board. There is an association called Taproot Foundation. It's a non-profit, primarily based in San Francisco and very popular in the LA area. What they do is they go to nonprofits. They identify them because nonprofits don't have the resources to have their full HR team. So I recruit 4 or 5 HR professionals. We go and do them the HR capacity building, performance review, building them the strategic things for free in the free time. So I've been doing this for the last 5-6 years. There are so many ways you can give back. Participate in the chat, share your thoughts, and learn the new things. There are different ways. These are all the things. These are all the ways I do.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So, Baskaran, what is your favorite movie?
Dunkirk and Inception. I'm a big fan of Christopher Nolan. I like his movies. I like those two movies very well. My favorite movies.
He's a good movie maker, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he is a brilliant movie maker. I mean, there are a lot of brilliant movie makers, but I find him to be really, really smart.
How about your favorite musician or band?
Well, I grew up in India, John. So my favorite music is A.R. Rahman, musician. He's an Academy Award winning, is a hugely famous music director in India. Here, I like country music. I like Keith Urban.
I love it. How about a favorite TV show?
I love watching American Ninja Warrior and The Voice. The two programs I'm very favorite show. And then I like watching basketball, particularly in the playoff time. Only during the playoff time.
Makes it more fun.
Bhaskaran, as I look at, we always have to try to find connection. I have to say, when I saw Dunkirk, I was absolutely just stunned by the music. And I was a music major. I was, very passionate about music. And the score to that film is one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. The whole sense of dread, throughout that film. And then that triumphant scene with all the civilian boats, I almost wept. I have no shame in saying that. It was so powerful, and that music just, was so amazing. Yeah, it was just beautiful. Absolutely
the storytelling, the music, the choreography, the stunt sequence and how they narrate it. I mean, all the things, makes the good movie, right? So I agree with you. That's a fantastic movie, John.
Well, now, if you're not watching the Nolan films, if you're not listening to Keith Urban, if you're not watching American Ninja Warrior, which we used to watch a lot too in this house when we had cable, what else do you like to do outside of work?
I am learning violin, so I try to play violin. I like the instrumental music a lot, and I do a lot of long walk, and I do transcendental meditation every day. And read a lot of books. I love reading, John. I think that makes you better all the time. Reading books.
Reading and the violin, that's good choices there.
And meditation to keep you sane.
Yes. Baskaran, if you weren't in the HR profession, what do you think you'd be doing professionally?
Professionally, I'm always fascinated by this alternate energy, particularly you look at the alternate energy sector. So I'll be doing something in the alternate energy space.
We're glad you're not, Baskaran, because more than likely, if you were, we wouldn't have the chance to talk to you. And I have to say, I was so glad that we connected, and it's hard to believe it's been almost a year now, but yeah. I can remember when you first kind of saw you in the chats, and I'm glad that you took part, and I'm really glad we were able to talk tonight. You survived the question connection. You survived our conversation at large. I know you said this was your first podcast, so I want to congratulate you on that.
Yes.
For our listeners that don't know you, I think especially when you talked about some of the things you talked about, especially blockchain, and want to learn more, how do those folks find you online? What's the best way to reach you out there?
I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm working on my website right now. I don't have it ready. I should be ready in a couple of weeks, a couple of days, or a couple of weeks maximum. But I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn. I can send you those links.
We'll put those in the show notes. And then, Wendy, how about you? What's the best way for our listeners to find you?
Best way is on my blog, mydailyjourney.com. Daily is D as in dog, AILEY. And you will find me on Twitter, but definitely the fourth Sunday of each month at 7 p.m. Eastern time as part of the HR Social Hour monthly Twitter chat. How about you, John?
Easiest way to find me is if you go to hrsocialhourpodcast.podbean.com. You'll find links to all my social networks there. And then while you're there, download an episode. Maybe it's the one before Baskaran's, or maybe an older episode. Take a listen to one you haven't heard before. Rate, review, give us a thumbs up. Help us spread the word. We'd really appreciate it. So, Baskaran, thanks again for being with us tonight. So for the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast, I'm John.
And I'm Wendy. And as always, be sure to connect,
give back, and network. Take care, everyone.
We'll see you soon.